Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0. Rangers shut out for the first time on the road this season and sixth time overall. And I said last episode I did not like the spot for the Rangers because of the fact that the Chicago Blackhawks were coming off of really an embarrassing performance against the Anaheim Ducks, and then as well the game before that to the Kings, being outscored by a combined 13-1 in those two games. I believe it was 7-1 versus the Ducks, completely outshot, outplayed. But all that said, that's not an excuse. I'm not surprised by it, but it doesn't mean that you just, totally lay down against a Chicago team that, yes, while they are improved and a better team than they were, when all is said and done, in all likelihood, at the end of the season, Chicago is a good chance they're going to be towards the bottom of the standings. Maybe they won't be, but the point I'm trying to make here is it's not as if Chicago is an overly imposing team. While I do want to give them some credit for the fact that, again, they have been better this season, not so much lately. And so the Rangers, they were aware. I think Sullivan had talked about it after the game that they were aware of those circumstances. And those are important circumstances to be aware of, but it should be independent of the effort that you put out on the ice. And this was a game where Chicago was just the better team from puck drop. And I felt as if the first goal was going to be very important. That tends to be the case in a lot of Ranger games, not all of them, but generally speaking, the Rangers have been solid at protecting leads. The Vegas game notwithstanding, but those also had, other circumstances involved. But the Rangers, when they've been a little bit better at coming back, but certainly maybe more to the point when they're down by 2 goals, it gets especially tricky. And the Rangers never look good in this game anyway. And a big topic of conversation out of this game, and it's another thing that I've discussed, is you got to be done with the 5-forward power play unit. I mean, this power play has been terrible since Adam Fox has been out. I believe it's 0 for 11, and now they gave up a shortened goal. So it's actually they're -1 as far as goal differential on the power play since Adam Fox has been out. And so I think Scott Morrow was probably your first most logical replacement, and they actually did make that switch in the third period. So they didn't even wait because this shorthanded goal happened in the second period. They didn't even wait until the next game. They did it immediately. So we'll get into that, but that's a big, big problem. But look, I know that the Rangers played well in this recent stretch, but it'd be one thing if the Rangers beat Colorado and Vegas. You lost to both of them. So what could have maybe been a 5-game point streak, it's actually a 3-game losing streak. I understand that you had a point in both of those games, one each, but there's no excuse. Could I have maybe understood it if you somehow were coming in off of a 4-game winning streak? I wouldn't have liked it, but I could understand it more. You lost those games. So, and that was my concern. As much as the Rangers were playing well against the upper echelon teams, it doesn't mean I have confidence the Rangers are going to do well against the, so-called lesser teams, and especially teams that are, more on the younger side with speed, which is what Chicago is. And now the next couple of games, you're getting that, but even advanced as far as, a little bit more high caliber in Montreal and Anaheim. So, that's a style of play that the Rangers are going to struggle against, and they just have to play their game. They can't match that. They're not going to win that way. So yeah, just not a good effort in this game. And the Rangers, look, they're desperate for points. I understand that, what was this game 32, I believe? Yeah, game 32. And, which is the most games of any team in the NHL. I keep on talking about that. That's why, don't let the points mislead you. It's about points percentage. And as far as points percentage goes, the Rangers are third to last in the Eastern Conference. Granted, they're close to a bunch of other teams above them in that category, but they're just not getting to where they need to get to. And look, this Ranger team, I've said it all along, it's not a great team. I mean, it just isn't. And they have a hard time scoring goals, majorly. This game and the lineup was the same. Taylor Radish, a healthy scratch for a second straight game, would definitely think he'll be in there against Montreal. Definitely. What's interesting too is, and I appreciate this, but it seems like Sullivan does not care in terms of like the fact that Radish used to be on the Blackhawks. I feel as if in the past, in certain situations, um, if it were a tough decision, maybe it wasn't. And look, Kamelash, I thought was good last game. Like I don't disagree with it, but I give Sullivan credit for not, going the sentimental route, with maybe because there was a few other instances this year where I thought, okay, maybe player X, would be inserted in the lineup because of the fact that it was maybe against a former team, whatever. Again, just a thought, but I digress. But I do think that Radish, not that he's going to make a big difference, I'd be pretty stunned if he was not back in there against Montreal after this effort. There's a good chance he'll be in there. For who, we'll see. But that's a conversation for another day. So yeah, the lineup was the same. The only switch made mid-game, I think that Berard had moved to the Carrick line and Brodzinski had moved to the Laba line. Overall thoughts before we kind of, dig into the nitty-gritty of the game. I mean, Igor was very good. Shesterkin got the start for the Rangers. He, made some really, really grade A, amazing saves in the first period. You're not going to hear me criticize him. He, did what he could, but the players in front of him didn't help him out. On the defensive side, I thought that this was a rare off game for Vlad Gavrikov. A bit of a culprit on the second goal, the one by Bedard. And just in general, he's so good with that stick, just seemed a little bit off. And look, that's going to happen. And look, it doesn't help when you're playing with Braden Schneider. That doesn't help. Gavrikov has been able to overcome that to this point, but you really see the loss of Adam Fox is really on full display, especially on the power play. But of course, to even strength, we can say what we want, and that, maybe in short spurts and play style, there can be a little bit of a bump and a positive, but overall, you lose Adam Fox, that's a big deal. So yeah, I didn't think that pair was very good. And other than that, not too many thoughts beyond that. I don't know. Robertson and Morrow didn't play that much. I actually didn't think that they were like in comparison to the rest of the crew. I didn't think they were like that bad, but like again, that's just kind of grasping at straws as well. For the forward group, pretty bad all the way around. I guess one of my first thoughts is, as much as when I look at this team, I think that the lack of firepower within the top six is probably the biggest problem with this team. I did not like the way the bottom six played. Now, they weren't on for any goals against the bottom six, but I don't know. I think, and you already saw, again, I brought up that line change where Berard moves down, Brodzinski moves up. I don't know. In terms of that Lava Cooley, what it was, it's kind of fizzled out a little bit lately, and I don't really have much faith that like that's the trio. And yeah, just Melash didn't do a whole lot. This isn't, look, but like I said, I haven't really been overly critical of the bottom six, but yeah, just not enough there really. Didn't think that they generated a whole lot. And then of course the top six, like, in the first period, the best line probably was the Trocheck line, but then like, not that they were that good in the first, but beyond that, they were like Trocheck and Miller were pretty terrible. Now, Miller still had the jump, but just the decision-making was off. Turnovers, couldn't handle pucks, things like that. I thought Trocheck just simply wasn't good, really, at all. And he's kind of, after I thought when he first came back was really gave a jolt to this lineup. He's kind of cooled down a bit. And then, yeah, Zibanejad line as well, just didn't do a whole lot. Lafreniere, actually, in the third period, was their best player. So there was that. He was generating, he came close to scoring a goal. He was, he drew at least one penalty in that third period. And so, yeah, but they weren't that good. Panarin just, laziness on his end, I felt a lot in this game. Now, he drew a penalty as well. Maybe that's the one. No, that was in the second period when the Blackhawks scored the short-handed goal. But, yeah, just bad all the way around. This isn't one of those games where you're going to, pick and choose individually. But those are kind of my broad thoughts on that. So yeah, Spencer Knight was in that for the Blackhawks. Again, they're coming off of, a couple of really bad performances. It caught my eye in kind of previewing this game after the during the Vegas episode. And but it's still no excuse. It's worth mentioning. It's part of the story, but you have to overcome that. I mean, look, Chicago, that's a winnable game. Just is. Um, was it one I was overly confident? Absolutely not. But it doesn't change the fact that Rangers have to find a way to do so much more than they did in this game. Uh, First period, I felt like by and large the Blackhawks were the better team. However, in some ways, I guess it probably, sadly, which it was a bad sign of things to come, as Rangers were not the better team in the first period. It probably was the Rangers' best period, I guess. And again, it's setting a very low bar. There were no penalties. There were no goals in this period. Shesterkin made it just an amazing save, I believe, on Burakovsky on a rebound chance. Really did the splits and just made a great, great save. And then Carrick did a nice job of tying up, the Blackhawk player who was going for the loose puck. But there were some Ranger chances. JT Miller directs one off of the post, I believe, on a kind of a fake shot pass from Scott Morrow to Miller, and he tries to deflect it. And again, it goes off the post. Mika Zibanejad had a really good chance on a mini breakaway where the puck was probably going to go in, but just at the last moment, it kind of goes off of Knight and then kind of careens wide of the net. So a little bit of a bad break for Zibanejad, who technically beat Knight, but it didn't go in. So yeah, there were a couple of good chances for the Rangers, but Chicago, had the better of the play, had more of the territorial edge, and just were kind of, testing Shesterkin more than the Rangers were testing Knight in that first period. So, in a lot of ways, I came out of the first period being kind of relieved that it was actually no, even though the Rangers did have those chances, the fact that it was no score, I kind of felt like it was a good thing. But it doesn't get any better, really. Second period at 2:31, Robertson holds Oliver Moore. Rangers do a nice job and kill it off pretty easily. Pretty soon thereafter, at 5:25, Wyatt Kaiser slashes Artemi Panarin. And here comes the Ranger power play with the five forwards. Again, it's been really bad in general. But now you add on just a back-breaking, important, short-handed goal for the Blackhawks. And the goal is scored at 7:08. Louis Crevier scores his third goal of the season from Grzelcyk and Dickinson. And, this is a goal scored by a defenseman on basically a breakaway. You knew it was going to come. And what really annoys me is, and we've seen this a lot with the Rangers, these power play one guys, where they stay on way, way too long. And this was not a power play that was doing a whole lot. Like, this exact power play was not really generating anything. And the only one that left the ice was Miller. Lafreniere replaced Miller. The other four, Cooley, Trocheck, Zibanejad, Panarin, was still on the ice. So what happens is Zibanejad at the offensive blue line struggles to keep the puck in. He's kind of battling, but he's not doing a great job. Initially, Panarin retreats back. He does the right thing initially. And then for some reason, I guess he felt like the Rangers were going to make a play. He goes up ice, and then it becomes an easy all-alone situation for Crevier. I mean, Panarin can't do that. But again, blame goes around to a lot of those guys for just staying on as long as they did. Trocheck tried to get back at the last moment, was unable to do so. Crevier makes a nice little backhand move past Shesterkin. I think most blame goes to Panarin, but again, it is a collective as well there. And that just cannot happen. Panarin cannot be doing that shit in that situation. It's not team hockey at all. It's goal hunting for things that weren't going to happen. Like, it just simply was not going to happen there. I don't know what he did the right thing at first to just go back. And yeah, that was a massive blow to a team that already wasn't playing that well. But if the Rangers score that first goal, I don't know how this game turns. It could have been a whole lot different. So Chicago takes that 1-0 lead there. Then a couple minutes later, there was a disallowed goal that the Blackhawks had due to a hand pass. Originally called the goal, Rangers challenged it, and they overturned it. But then the Blackhawks actually scored again. This time it counts to make it 2-0 lead. Connor Bedard scores his 19th goal of the season, assisted by Burakovsky at 14:27. And this was one where um, you have it's kind of in the middle of a line change. Zibanejad was coming off, Trocheck was coming on. And at this point, you had Panarin still on the ice, JT Miller. Panarin was just doing I don't know what. JT Miller too, to a lesser extent. But that all said, things could have been covered up. But Burakovsky goes past Schneider and a little bit of a back pass to the middle of the ice towards Bedard, and Bedard just simply beats Gavrikov. Gavrikov is usually a little bit more sturdy in those situations. Usually he'll be able to break that up. He just was a bit late to it. Not really sure what happened there. And the Blackhawks take a 2-0 lead. And then at that point, you're thinking, all right, that's game over. And it was. I mean, Child takes that 2-0 lead. That's the lead they'd have going into the third period. And the problem that I have with these Rangers third periods, when they're trailing for the most part, especially by 2 goals or even 1 goal. I know they've had some comebacks lately, but still, before that, like the third periods are shit. I mean, the Rangers, when they're down the third period, it's not as if like they are really making things happen. Now, this is more of a home, like when I'm thinking about it, these are more of the home games that this happens in, but still. At 4:35, Sherry hooks Frank Nazar. Oh, sorry, before that, at 3:52, Tyler Bertuzzi scores his 16th goal of the season, assisted by Green and Bedard. And this is one where the Rangers were changing. The Carrick line was going off the ice. The Trocheck Miller line was coming on the ice. And within all of that, Bertuzzi scores in front. And Gavrikov was on. Yeah, it was kind of a combination where Schneider, it was a partial change. And Bedard makes a move around Gavrikov. Green slips in there, and Bertuzzi just kind of whacks away in front and scores. And Chicago takes a 3-0 lead. Like I said, then you get that Sherry hooking penalty. Rangers kill it off. Then at 7:04, Crevier trips Lafreniere. Rangers go to Scott Moore on the first power play unit. It doesn't do anything. They don't score. Also, Jason Dickinson interferes at Lafreniere, 11:55. Rangers would score later. So Lafreniere does draw 2 penalties in the third period and also had a really great chance on a nice sort of toe drag through the legs, backhand play off the crossbar. And it's the things like that that are frustrating me because Lafreniere does have that ability that you just don't see nearly enough. But in third period, he did decide to play, but, didn't lead to any goals. So, yeah, power play was bad. It's been bad. I don't expect it to get better without Fox, but at least, in my opinion, unless you're in a desperate situation, right? If you're in a late game scenario, then I'm fine with the 5 forwards. But over the course of the game, I just don't think you can take that chance. And in some ways, I almost feel like it's in their heads as well, too, where they, even though Panarin didn't really act like that, I don't think it's the right mix. At 1941, for what it's worth, Sam Carrick, a double minor roughing, him and Frank Nazar kind of get into it. Carrick just, again, it was over. I'm not sure what it was, maybe message sending to his own team or just general frustration. But Chicago gets the shutout. They win 3-0. Just a bad performance of the Rangers. Nothing going on in this game. And now they will head home for 3 games and 4 nights, all at Madison Square Garden. So, we've talked about the Rangers' struggles at home. It's gotten a little bit better. It's going to need to. Now, it's home against Montreal Saturday night. And by the way, the Centennial jerseys, which they wore, so there's another clashing of colors like we saw when Detroit came to Madison Square Garden. Blackhawks were wearing red in this one. Rangers wearing the Centennial, light blue. Rangers, I believe, now are 0-5. They haven't even gotten a point. So those Centennial jerseys, it's almost fitting, 100th Ranger year anniversary. And these jerseys are certainly not doing the Rangers any good. I believe they'll be wearing them again against Montreal. But yeah, 0-5 in those jerseys. But yeah, Rangers, Canadians, and that's a really big game. Rangers, they beat Montreal in Montreal early in the season, but Montreal did very good away from home, like much better on the road. And of course, we know the Rangers have struggled at home. Montreal, they'll be coming off of a game against Pittsburgh, which occurs tomorrow night. So we'll see what they do there. They go to Pittsburgh for that one. But Montreal, yeah, they've struggled a little bit lately. They haven't been horrible, but they have not been great. Currently, as I record this, they're on a 2-game losing streak. Again, I'm kind of hoping that they beat Pittsburgh so that they're not coming in on a 3-game losing streak. But yeah, that is a very big game as I see it. And then after that, Monday night, you get the return of Chris Kreider, and to a lesser extent, Jacob Trouba to Madison Square Garden and what will be a highly anticipated game against the Ducks. And then very next night, the Rangers take on the reeling Vancouver Canucks. I mean, they've really been very bad this season. So we'll see, but it's a really big, really big 3-game situation. Also, want to add that Adam Edstrom was placed on long-term IR. Don't think he's going to be out that long, but I think it was something that was lingering, and so he'll be out at least 10 games, retroactive to whenever it had been. So Adam Edstrom figure he'll be out, close to the end of the month or so at the very least, I would think. It seems like Matt Rempe isn't too far from returning, and I think that would be a welcome addition or re-addition to the team. Like I said, I feel like that bottom six hasn't looked all that great, and so kind of forgetting about Taylor Radish for a moment, Matt Rempe, I think, while it won't provide all answers, I do think that it can give them a little bit more energy, more enthusiasm, and just a different look with Rempe. And it seems like he's not too far away from coming back. And especially with those games, I feel like he gets the crowd going. I feel like that could help as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Rangers, Adam Fox can't return soon enough. I'm hoping somehow he can return, late December, maybe early January for the Winter Classic. Because, again, like they've handled themselves. They've done good enough as he's been out, but it's been 5 games. You're out at least 10 games for LTIR, so he's going to be out at least another 5 games, and the Rangers are going to have to find a way to, get points. And so yeah, they'll head home. 3 games at home in short order. Again, 3 and 4 nights: Montreal, Anaheim, Vancouver. But they come away losers in an ugly loss. They're shut out by the Chicago Blackhawks. Final score, 3-0.